Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Christine Pitawanich. First here at 6, overnight temperatures are dropping and efforts to keep warm are leading to an uptick in fire calls.
Let's get right to Devin Haskins live in southeast Portland with the warning from fire officials. Devin?
Yeah, David and Christine, fire officials say that they see an increase in those space heater related fires during these winter months, especially as it gets colder and people are using them to warm up. In fact, Portland Fire says they've responded to 3 such fires just in the last week. Just before 5 o'clock Monday morning, a fire at a southwest Portland apartment in the second floor bedroom. Investigators say a space heater was to blame.
You got to make sure that when you're using those space heaters that you have the area in front of that space heater completely clear of any combustible material.
Portland Fire says this was not an isolated incident. In just the last week, crews have responded to 3 space heater fires. Just a week ago, a 64-year-old woman died in a home in the northeast Piedmont neighborhood. Investigators believe an extension cord connected to a space heater caused it. As temperatures drop, people often turn to space heaters. And fire officials say the number of fires go up, particularly between December and February.
We see that increased in the space heater use or the outside warming fires that unfortunately extend to something and we respond.
And it's not just what's happening inside homes. As cold weather sets in, warming fires outside are becoming more common, especially for those living outside. Portland Fire says those fires create a difficult balance because while some may start small, they can also spread quickly. That's why the Bureau recently changed how it handles low-risk warming fires, now looking at each situation case by case, weighing the immediate danger while also trying to connect people with shelter and resources.
If that fire poses a risk to anything, a structure, a vehicle, vegetation, we're going to extinguish that.
That was put into action early Sunday morning in the Lloyd district when a warming fire at a homeless camp outside a Red Robin restaurant spread to the restaurant itself. Fire officials say simply putting a low-risk fire out isn't always the best solution because it can push people into more hidden spaces.
We have found that if we just extinguish these fires, those people end up going to alleys and next to buildings like the Red Robin inside their tent, and we have injuries and deaths as a result of these fires. So we're really trying to manage a very, very changing landscape.
Talking about those space heaters, fire officials say that if you do need to plug one in to not plug it into a power strip or an extension cord, but to plug it directly into the wall itself. And if you leave, make sure you unplug it and turn it off. Back to you.
All good things to remember. Thank you, Devin. Further south in Lebanon, take a look at the fire that broke out this morning at the old Rite Aid on East Oak Street. Fire crews believe it started at a homeless camp next to the building. The flames were seen burning up a wall. Thankfully, no one was hurt.
Now to a live look outside on this Monday evening. 39 degrees on a chilly night after another beautiful day in the Rose City.
Chief Meteorologist Matt Sfino joining us now. Matt, really hoping we get to see the northern lights tonight.
Yeah, there's a really good chance, Christine. We've got the clear sky, which of course is no small feat in the month of January here in the northwest, but that's what we have going on tonight. Here's Salem right now. You can see it's clear. We're looking south. That's not the direction you want to look for the northern lights, of course, and I'll show you in a little bit some viewing tips. 38 degrees though in Salem. It is chilly. It was 50 earlier, but boy, it's dropped really quickly. And one of the reasons is, well, 2 reasons. First of all, the very, very dry air allows the temperature to drop quickly, kind of like in the desert. Light winds and the clear sky and the longer nights, of course, of January, all conspiring to get our cold morning temperature. So if you're going to head out, make sure you bundle up. It dropped into the mid-20s in Hillsborough and Scappoose this morning. Portland and Troutdale warmer because the wind, and we still have the east wind, but it will begin to weaken as we go into the daytime hours tomorrow. So the worst of the east wind, it should be behind us right now. We had gusts of 74 miles an hour out in the gorge this afternoon up at Corbett in Crown Point. Okay, so here's what's ahead. More dry weather, of course, the cold mornings and mild afternoons. East winds weaken, as I said. Frost in the mornings, but really no signs of any precipitation coming our way. Now, the northern lights, you're looking north from our Lincoln City Skycam, and that's the direction you want to look. That's where they're most likely to be seen. The Aurora Oval, as it's called, should extend well south into Oregon. So we have an excellent chance of seeing the northern lights tonight. It's never a guarantee, but what you want to do, get away from the city lights because that'll really spoil it for you. Look north after about 10 p.m. They could show up sooner if it's a really strong storm, and it is a very strong, severe geomagnetic storm causing this, and give your eyes time to adjust. And of course, it's cold, so make sure you bundle up. get ready, have some patience, and hopefully we'll get quite the show, guys.
Yeah, crossing our fingers. Thank you so much, Matt. Hey, speaking of this clear weather we've had, river advocates are reminding people to be safe and say despite the sun, the water is still very cold. And also recent flooding has stirred up a whole lot of debris.
I mean, 42 degrees in the Willamette. How's that for cold? Libby Dowsett has more from along the Tualatin.
River levels are finally getting back to normal, but if you take a look over here, river keepers say trees, root balls are washing down our rivers, getting stuck, just waiting to snag someone. River keepers are concerned people will see all this great sunny weather and decide to pop back out on the river without taking precautions. Mark Fitzsimmons knows the Tualatin River. He spends summers guiding kayaking groups with the Tualatin River Keepers.
You get a few sunny days in a row and the air temperature gets warm and people get restless.
But even he wouldn't head out on the river during winter without a dry suit and emergency provisions. He says the smooth, sunny surface does not reflect what's underneath after flooding.
It starts to float. It starts to float root wads. It starts to float logs, entire trees. It starts to float piles of firewood.
He says lowered branches can sweep you off your kayak, or snags in the current can funnel you underwater.
If you see this much, of a tree, 2/3, 3/4, or more of that tree can be underwater.
He advises kayakers to carry a pump, travel in numbers, and float with someone experienced. Even larger boat captains have been dodging debris in the Willamette. Portland's Fire and Rescue Harbor Master telling us.
Again, you just can't get out of the way of those things fast enough in a lot of cases, especially if you're looking the other way and it comes up behind you.
And if it's not the debris that gets you, it's the cold water.
You're thrown into the water, you do that. And if your head's not above water, if you don't have a life jacket on, that's what I think probably causes most of the early season deaths that we see.
Another piece of advice, get some cold water gloves, because if you were to fall into the water, you often lose control of your hands, so you can't grab anything or unzip your clothing. River keepers say it's best to just stay out of the water this time of year. In Tualatin, Libby Dowsett, KGW News.
In your headlines tonight, Portland police are asking for help identifying a man they say stabbed a woman last month in the Pearl District. This was nearly a month ago, December 20th, near Northwest 13th and Hoyt. The woman was stabbed in the torso, survived, and has since been released from the hospital. Crime Stoppers is now offering a $2,500 cash reward for information that leads to an arrest.
Police arrested two men Sunday. They say were trying to steal fiber optic copper cable not far from the airport. Officers were called to a burglary along Northeast Airport Way in the industrial area east of PDX. 33-year-old Carlos Chavez and 30-year-old Dylan Nagata face burglary and trespassing charges. Chavez has since been released from jail.
Well, looking ahead to Wednesday, Portland City Council is set to consider a resolution telling the mayor how some councilors want to spend millions in housing funds. We're talking about nearly $21 million in unspent money that was discovered in late November. For the most part, this proposal directs the funds toward rent assistance, eviction defense programs, and emergency housing vouchers.
Then on Thursday, Oregon's Transportation Commission will meet to talk about the I-5 bridge project and how ODOT will move ahead with a budget gap of nearly $250 million. That's because of the referendum effort spearheaded by some state Republicans, which paused tax and fee hikes meant to help ODOT's budget situation. The agency says if lawmakers cannot agree on a funding plan, they'll have to lay off nearly 500 current employees.
And TriMet is now buying downtown Portland's Greyhound Terminal. That's according to our news partners at the Portland Business Journal. The agency will spend about $12 million in federal funds and use the property, formerly a homeless shelter, to now house buses. This as TriMet plans to slash bus routes, 11 of them, and reduce 24 others because of budget woes. A TriMet spokesperson saying these federal funds could not be used for normal operations or for maintenance.
Well, it is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and in honors of the late civil rights leader, hundreds of people volunteered in Portland to clean up parks, while others participated in peace walks.
Let's bring in Joe Ranieri live in Salem. And Joe, you spoke with organizers about why this day is so important to them.
That's right, David. Well, at McKay High School, they held their second annual MLK Jr. Peace Walk, and it was held earlier this afternoon. That brought a couple of hundred people in both the Salem-Kaiser community together. Now, the walk stretched from the high school to the Salem First Free Methodist Church earlier this afternoon. Events were held to celebrate the late civil rights leader from across the country. In Portland, there were other marches along Rosa Parks Way in North Portland. Today is all about celebrating what he stood for, but it's also a day of service too. In Northeast Portland, volunteers with Solve came out to help clean up local parks.
I think it's great to just have the opportunity to give back and show that we care about the communities that we're in, to give back in any way, shape, or form. And this is one way that we can, on a broad scale, show the community that we're here and we're here to stay.
The Portland Sunshine Division held a huge event where they put together 1,000 food boxes that was delivered to families across the metro area, reaching a couple thousand different family members. And that annual food box service is held every year. In fact, they've been doing this, the Sunshine Division, along with Kaiser Permanente, for the last 6 years. In Salem tonight, Joe Ranieri, KGW News.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, let's go back in time some 65 years to November 1961 when Dr. King visited the Rose City. He spoke to a crowd at Civic Auditorium, now known as Keller Auditorium. The Multnomah County Library still has this flyer advertising King's visit, which was in the Urban League newsletter. He also spoke, by the way, at Portland State and Lewis and Clark College.
So cool to see that flyer. And you know what? We found this photo of King meeting with local civil rights leaders at Vancouver Avenue First Baptist Church as well. King discussed fair housing issues in the Albina neighborhood, where much of Portland's Black population lived because they could not get loans to buy homes in other parts of the city. It was an illegal practice called redlining. This was also around the time when I-5 construction was splitting the neighborhood.